Welcome to this episode of The Buzz, where we talk about the latest in entertainment and pop culture news. I'm your host, Andrew Argate.
And I'm Michaela Franklin. Thanks so much for being here. Marvel fans all over the world are mourning the loss of comics creator and innovator Stan Lee.
The visionary comic book creator died Monday at the age of 95. Lee's vivid imagination was his superpower. With it, Lee led Marvel Comics and drew people into a world where superheroes and villains faced off in a battle between good and evil. Reporter Stephanie Elam takes a look back at Lee's marvelous life and career.
Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the X-Men. They're among the most iconic comic book heroes in history, and they simply would not exist without Stan Lee. The visionary behind Marvel Comics lived a life almost as incredible as the characters he created.
I'm pretty proud of the fact that some of the stories that I wrote so many years ago are still being read and hopefully enjoyed by the public, and people are making motion pictures based on them and television series.
Spider-Man debuted in 1962 and became Lee's most successful comic book creation.
Spider-Man is my favorite because he's the most popular and he's known and loved worldwide.
Lee's spidey senses were tingling. Years later, in 2002, the first Spider-Man film was released and was a blockbuster hit.
As a child, I didn't really know anybody who shot webs or crawled on buildings or wore suits of armor and flew or anything like that. I just imagined them, and there they were.
He also imagined Thor, the Incredible Hulk, and the Fantastic Four. They were flawed people with extraordinary powers.
I never had any idea that these characters would last this long. In fact, I and the people I worked with who co-created them with me, the many talented artists, we just hoped that the books would sell and we'd continue to get our salary and be able to pay our rent. The movies have done so much for the characters. The movies have given the comic book characters even more prestige.
The native New Yorker was born Stanley Morgan Lieber. He had humble beginnings, but his love for comics took him much farther than he ever dreamed. He also earned a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
In a million years, I never thought, that I'd get something like this.
As his creations became larger than life on the big screen, he also kept a feverish pace, making appearances at events like Comic-Con in San Diego.
How are you? Glad to see you.
Though his life seemed charmed, it wasn't without adversity. Lee was married to his wife Joan for over 60 years, and they had 2 daughters. However, his youngest only lived for a few days. In his 80s, Lee was involved in various lawsuits against Marvel and Disney over the span of 7 years. In September 2012, he had surgery for a pacemaker and joked he was trying to become more like his Iron Man character, Tony Stark.
To me, the most important thing in the world is to keep busy, and I'm happy to say I'm lucky enough to still be busy.
The Stan Lee Foundation was also a passion project for Lee, who seemed to believe with great power comes great responsibility.
What we concentrate on is education, educating children.
Stanley!
I never would have dreamed years ago that anything like this would happen.
The king of comics, who was adored worldwide, was most proud of his family and his comic heroes. Perhaps Lee will be remembered as a legendary innovator with an uncanny ability to capture the imagination.
Excelsior!
Well, a very touching story about a man who left a major legacy here, and for me is just one of the biggest inspirations for me. I don't know, Michaela, did you have any personal connections with some of his work?
I mean, I grew up with an older brother who loved Spider-Man and X-Men, and it's really interesting because I think back to the first time I watched Spider-Man growing up, and this guy's really touched a lot of lives, and It's crazy to think that although he's gone, his legacy will live on for my children, my children's children, and my children's children's children, and on and on and on, right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I remember one of the first films I saw was the first Spider-Man back in 2002, and ever since then I've just been enamored with this universe that he's created, and just some of the quotes looking back on him, how he created the X-Men to show people that there are no bad people just because somebody is different. I don't know, that just really spoke to me. So again, rest in peace, Stan Lee.
rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Absolutely.
In other news, we're getting first looks at some of the most highly anticipated movies of 2019. Disney and Pixar released the first trailer for Toy Story 4 on Monday. The teaser features everyone's favorite toys floating through the air. The sequence is set to Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now. We see for the first time the newest member of the group, Forky. The makeshift toy panics and sends the other toys spinning literally. Toy Story 4 supposedly follows the group as their owner adds Forky to the mix. The newest installment of the 3D animated franchise is slated to hit theaters June of next year.
Did you just talk?
Whoa. Did you just understand me?
Oh my God, you can understand me! Stop! I've been so lonely!
Yes, that's the voice of Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds as Pokemon Detective Pikachu. The first trailer for the movie, set in Rhyme City, where people and Pokemon live in not quite harmony, has racked up more than 16 million views. Justice Smith co-stars in the Pokemon pick, which hits theaters next May. All right, so first and foremost, Toy Story 4. What are you feeling about it?
I am excited.
Are you?
I am so glad that Pixar has decided to continue the Toy Story legacy.
Right.
I've been there for Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, and it's kind of like I grew up with Toy Story, you know?
Yeah,
like,
no, I honestly, when I first heard about it, I was like, Toy Story 3 ended so good. There was no reason to like continue it, but now that I saw the trailer, I was like, all right, fine, I guess I'll get into it. So.
I'm definitely not in a rush for the day that Toy Story ends.
Right.
Like, I definitely hope that it continues on for as long as they can go.
I think it'll be really good. Pixar's kind of just hit their stride right now. I mean, Incredibles 2 was great.
Oh,
and just
yeah.
all the movies before that. I'm excited for Toy Story 4.
Definitely.
I'm also really excited for Detective Pikachu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as I also grew up with Pokemon and just played a couple of the games, watched some of the TV shows, and to see them to do like such an interesting like new take on Pokemon that I don't think we've seen up until now, I'm very excited for it, and I just think Ryan Reynolds is just a comedic genius at this point. So
I think Ryan Reynolds is the perfect person to do the voice for Pikachu. I mean, he is hilarious, and I think this movie is going to be a huge hit just because Ryan Reynolds is the voice, and Pokemon is such a huge thing still, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we have Pokemon Go, the app still, and people went crazy about that, and I think they definitely they're going to be a perfect time to release this movie.
I think the film is PG-13, so I think all those like kids who were like 5 or 6 when Pokemon first hit are now 20-year-olds that are wanting to see like a bit of an edgier take on Pokemon, so I'm excited for it.
I'm really curious to see how they bring it to life. I mean, we got a little snippet there, but I mean...
Right, I want to see all the Pokemon they throw in it.
Absolutely. I mean, we've grown up watching it as a cartoon, and now it's going to be like live.
It's there.
Yeah, absolutely. A Florida man decided to take a spin around a neighborhood dressed as a famous cartoon character. If you're thinking about speeding through the neighborhood dressed as Fred Flintstone, maybe yabba dabba don't. Don Swartz learned that the hard way when he was pulled over by officials in Florida. Swartz was driving a smart car altered to replicate the show's famous Foot Mobile, and he was dressed as Fred Flintstone. As shares off his Facebook post, and Swartz was cited and his vehicle impounded, but then they revealed the mock encounter was all in good fun.
There must have been a lot of effort to turn a whole car into the mobile from the
That's
Flintstones.
what I'm saying. When I first saw it, I was like, why didn't I think of this? Like,
I mean, he probably saves a lot on gas, but also...
I mean, they must have a lot of love for the Flintstones.
I mean, we've been talking about franchises that people have been passionate about this whole time, and never once did I think that people would be fanatics over the Flintstones still. So.
Exactly, and then apparently they just wanted to show the world their
guess
love.
so. Sometimes you just have to have a stunt that you get pulled over for.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Alrighty. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of The Buzz.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
Your success depends upon effective communication. Visit montevallo.edu/COFA. You create your future in communication studies and mass communication. You belong at Montevallo.